Loon Dog. It's my guy right there.
Look at you.
It's my guy. Kevon Looney. Can't wait to see him on the court. Preseason schedule has been released for the Golden State Warriors. That's right. 5 games in the preseason, 3 at Chase Center, including 2 bobblehead nights. 1 bobblehead involving Steph Curry, the graduation bobblehead. He's got his Davidson gown, cap and gown on with the diploma. Then you got paper airplane clay. So 2 bobbleheads going down there, and once against the LA Lakers and once against the Sacramento Kings.
That's awesome.
Kings and Warriors will play twice in the preseason. Warriors and Lakers will play twice in the preseason.
I love preseason games, Bonte, because they're just low stakes. It's fun. You can bring your kids there. If you have little ones, I bring young Benjamin. He's 3 years old. He just loves to see the guys play. Like, he gets to see. And that's the fun thing about preseason basketball. He gets to see LeBron. He gets to see Steph. He gets to see Draymond, all these sort of guys. Chris Paul playing there. So it'll be pretty cool. I'll be there. First game in action for Chris Paul.
First game in action, no doubt. Xfinity Mobile text line out to the King of the Hill. My dad said from the 415, Gaylord Perry for Sam McDowell was his worst trade memory.
Wow, that's a way back.
408, Jose Canseco for the, I'm not going to say that, but for Ruben Sierra. Not the greatest trade, but Jose kind of faded after that.
Yeah.
Jose faded. There was a couple on YouTube as well. And YouTube, of course, now sponsored by First NorCal Credit Union. We got Hank Schulman. We got the great Hank. All right, let's bring in Hank, legendary former Giants beat writer for the Chronicle. We grew up reading him. Now he covers them every now and then for MLB.com because he gets a little bored around the house, and he knows the Giants inside and out. Hank, good morning, man. Welcome to the Morning Roast.
Good morning, and thanks for starting by reminding me how old I am.
No. You started off as an 18-year-old, man. You're a young scribe. That's all.
Okay.
That's all. And we remember the hair game, too. You had great hair, Hank. Yeah, great hair.
Mulletville.
The Mulletville, man. The mullet was bopping, man. Listen, the trade deadline has come and went, and the Giants have won 3 straight against Arizona. They go 11-9 in this 20-game stretch where they only have 1 day off since the All-Star break. And I was okay with Farhan Zaidi not making a big splash at the deadline. Where are you at with that? With the Giants winning games, they're 12 games over 500. I kind of like Farhan to just stick it to the plan, saying, hey, look, if there's not a big-time move out there, I'm not going to make it just to make it. What did you make of the Giants' quiet trade deadline?
Well, for one thing, I don't think there were a lot of big moves to be made. I mean, this was one of the weakest trade deadline days I've ever seen in terms of talent changing hands. I mean, you obviously had Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer both being moved from the Mets. But both of those guys had no trade clauses, and I don't think either one of them had any desire to come to San Francisco. And you start looking at the other names of the pitchers. I really thought they needed, more than anything, I thought they needed a starter, and even a number 3 type or whatever. But even other than Jack Flaherty, who's come on pretty well, Michael Lorenzen maybe, there really weren't any of those guys out there, and the asks, I think, were kind of high, and I really kind of believe that the Giants are in a spot right now, in my opinion, with their farm system where it's far more improved. It might be the strongest farm system yet since the days of Buster Posey, Crawford, Belt, Lincecum, and all those guys. But it's not at the point like where the Dodgers have it or the Padres were at last year when they traded Soto, where they could afford to dig into that farm system and not hurt themselves for the future. They're probably about a year away from that, and I was fine with them not trading any prospect that you would kind of make you go, whoa, why did they get rid of him for a rental? Now, if it was for a player that you could control for a year after this, I would have been fine with trading pretty much any one of those prospects for a guy they could have gotten for a year and 2 months. So, I'm still a little wary of this whole opener for 3 out of the 5 spots. Maybe it'll be 2 out of 5 if Harrison can come up and join the rotation as a mainstay. We don't know if he will yet. I'm a little wary of that, but I don't think there was anybody out there. I mean, Lance Lynn. The Dodgers got Lance Lynn. He's statistically the worst pitcher in baseball this year. That's not a splash.
Right.
No, totally. You're right. And you were talking about splashes and stuff like that, not making one. Where are you at with Giants and Giants fans, and what should expectations be for this team down the stretch? Because I was talking this morning, Hank, and listen, if they get in, all bets are off from me. Like, it's a crapshoot. Anything could happen. If Webb and Cobb are hot, hell, you got Ross Stripling in there. He's been decent the last few starts. Anything could happen. What should expectations for this squad be heading down the stretch here in a tough August?
Well, I mean, I agree with the point that, I mean, once you get in, the Giants proved that in the old days, back in 2010, 12, 14, that they proved that once you get in, anything really can happen. I mean, the 2012 team was loaded, but other than that, 10 and 14 were not. You wouldn't have expected them to win the World Series. And right now, if the playoffs open today, they would be in that new division series that division series round where they would actually host all three games in a best of 2 of 3 series. So that's an advantage. And you know, the NL Central is so weak that if the Giants somehow manage to win the division, they could actually have home field in 2 playoff series. But I'm still, I'm still going to be skeptical because of 2 things. Again, like I said, I'm not sure this whole opener thing for 3 out of 5 spots or 2 out of 5 spots is really sustainable long term without kind of bruising that bullpen a little bit. I think Kapler has done a great job of managing it. And the other thing is that the Giants they're going to get Estrada back. That lengthens the lineup. Maybe some of the rookies who got hot and sort of lost it a little bit may get hot again. You know, Jock has not been hitting, and the Giants really don't have that stretch of a lineup like all the other contenders have, where you go, well, okay, if once we get through this stretch, we'll be okay for the next couple of innings, and that's what concerns me about the Giants making a sustained run in the playoffs or even getting through this next month. You alluded to it. I mean, this schedule is not just brutal in terms of the teams they're playing, but they're playing teams that put up a lot of runs. I mean, they got to play the Braves 6 times in the span of 10 days. They got the Rangers coming in, and thank goodness for the Giants, they're not going to Texas, where they have a live ballpark over there. And I just don't know that they can sustain for the next month, winning games 3-2, 4-3, and whatnot. If they can get through August, they have a pretty good shot. But again, once they get into the playoffs, it really they don't have that. The Dodgers start the lineup out with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, and the Braves have that monstrous middle lineup. The Giants just don't have that. I mean, the Giants have been winning with 1 or 2 guys maybe getting hot at the same time and then just dominating on the mound. So I've seen the Giants win without the best lineups before in the postseason. I'm still a little skeptical.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hank Schulman here on the Morning Ross on 95.7 The Game, former Giants beat writer for the Chronicle. Now he covers them every now and then, but he's still tapped in for MLB.com. I'm with you there. You talked about the Braves. They got at least 5 guys with 20-plus home runs. That lineup is deep. You look at you mentioned the Dodgers with Betts, Freeman, Will Smith. J.D. Martinez is having a good year. They bring back Kike Hernandez, a known Giants killer. I'm with you with this lineup that batted .209 in the month of July. And you mentioned Texas coming in next weekend. Now they're going to see Shohei in L.A. I'm sure the rumors, hey, the Giants are going to get Shohei. I don't think so. We don't have to talk about that. But Bochy coming back to town. You covered Bochy's entire tenure with the Giants. What is that going to be like for Giants fans when the Rangers do come to town next week with their first-place baseball team?
Well, I think it's going to be a love fest. I mean, I don't think there's any question that Bruce Bochy would be a Hall of Famer right now if he had not decided to come back into baseball. He would have been on the the ballot. Maybe it's this year's ballot. I mean, with the managers, and I mean, I don't think there's anybody else who has worn a uniform, including that. Maybe aside from Buster, who had more to do with the Giants winning 3 and 5 than Bruce Bochy did. And it's going to be weird to see him in blue. I mean, for the Giants fans, thank goodness it's not the other blue that he's come in with. But he's got a great team. I mean, I have to imagine that when Chris Young called him and said, "Hey, we'd like you to manage," and he had already seen what the Rangers had done by bringing in some of the bats that they had brought in, and then after he, then after he agrees to manage, they bring in this whole load of star pitchers. Unfortunately, DeGrom got hurt. But then they go out and they bring in Max Scherzer.
Yep.
So I mean, I think that it's great for Bochy that he's finally got a team that can really put up runs in bunches. He had one team like that in all of his time with the Giants. That was the 2012 team. And I mean, I think he should get a rousing ovation every time his name is mentioned and every time he kind of walks onto the field. And I'd love to see him actually get mad at an umpire, blow up, and get it. That was always fun.
No doubt. Time him with the stopwatch. See how long it takes him to get out that dugout to home plate.
Absolutely. A guy that actually doesn't get tossed a lot is Gabe Kapler. I want to ask you about him. A lot was made about the hiring of him, that presser. We all remember it. Wasn't very comfortable for him, I'm sure. What are your thoughts on the kind of job he's done this year and his tenure so far as a Giants manager?
Well, I mean, I think he's evolved and he's grown. Remember, when he got here, he only had 2 years of managing experience. And, this is a guy who played on old school teams. So he gets hired into a sort of new school environment in Philadelphia. And, they wanted him to manage by the sabermetric rules. And it really was touch and go there because, he was just early on, he was making decisions that really had no bearing on what the feelings of the players were. And I think he learned a lot. I think that the Giants owe the Phillies a debt for, hiring him and then letting him make all these mistakes for 2 years. And I think he left Philadelphia a better manager than he was when he got there by quite a lot. It was the 2-year, I guess it's called an associate's degree that you get from a 2-year college.
Yeah, I know all about that.
Very valuable. Very valuable. I mean, those 2 years are very valuable. And now he's earned his bachelor's in San Francisco with that 107 win team. And now I think he's almost ready to get that master's degree because the way he's managing this, the lineup and the rotation if you want to call it a rotation, the pitching is just it's unreal. And I think part of it that gets lost is that it's something that used to be criticized, which is how the front office sort of gets into the manager's office, for decision making and all that. I don't think Gabe would be able to do this alone without sort of a daily consultation with Farhan Zaidi. Now that they've been together all these years, not just Farhan, but other people in the front office, the player evaluators, the sabermetrics people. And it just seems like a great managing team. I don't mean team like in the sense of the Giants. I mean team like in the sense of the entirety of the group that is making these decisions every day on what the team, or at least how the team is going to start these games. And then, I mean, his use of the bullpen, his use of the pinch hitters. He pinch hit for Conforto in the fourth or fifth.
Yeah,
he'll pinch hit.
Yeah.
He'll put Slater in there in the third inning for a left-handed hitter if a left-handed pitcher happens to come out on the mound. And that requires a big buy-in from the players. I'm not sure all the players agree with it. I think if Alex Wood were over my sofa right now, we'd have quite the conversation. But I mean, I just think it's phenomenal. And I wouldn't have said this when Gabe got hired, but I think the Giants are very fortunate to have him.
I think he's done a great job. And you mentioned the part-time roles here. Marco Luciano, for crying out loud, got pinch hit for in his major league debut. And I wonder how players feel about that in the offseason when it comes to free agency and signing with the Giants. But, Hank, I did want to ask you about Farhan because it feels like to describe Farhan Zaidi, it feels like it's a lot more negativity when you say the name Farhan Zaidi than it is positive with the moves he's made, some of the lack of signings, some of the signings that he's made. How would you assess his overall job since he's become the president of baseball operations with the Giants?
Well, first of all, I think that the mood on Zaidi from the fans, changes week to week and month to month. I mean, when they won 170 games a couple of years ago, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And you wonder why sliced bread hadn't been invented many centuries ago, but that's a digression there. I think that he's done a good job with bringing in sort of undervalued players, which is the whole Moneyball thing, right? Bringing in players who might be undervalued by other teams. Even there have been some busts. I mean, you can't deny that. I mean, they paid $13 million for the right to trade for Will Wilson, who's a prospect who's kind of been a bust. I mean, Hunter Bishop, their very first draft pick under this regime. I mean, he's been hurt a lot, but I mean, he's looks like he's turning into a nothing. Part of the problem that he has is that he hasn't had much of a farm system to use for trading for impact players, and I can't tell you because I'm not with the team. I don't know how much he's been constricted at all financially in making some moves that he could have made, but he has been constricted in the fact that hitters still don't want to sign here as free agents as much as they want to sign with other teams, and the Giants haven't been of a mind to just come in and blow somebody out of the water. Right. They have made offers that players have turned down that were higher than the offers that they took, but I think it's been a learning experience for Farhan too. I mean, some of the things that worked really well with the A's and the Dodgers may not have worked well here because he hasn't had the same kind of farm system that he had in Oakland and Los Angeles. But I mean, I think overall he's done a good job. I mean, you pick up guys just as an example. I mean, Alex Cobb, he's gone out and looked at guys who have been injured in the past and may have had a lot of downside, but they've seen what what these guys have done and feel that there's no reason they can't do it again when healthy. I mean, Mike Yastrzemski, bringing him in after the Orioles of all teams, when they were really bad, wouldn't give him a chance to play. And there's move after even Connor Joe. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember.
I remember Connor Joe, Michael Redd, that first game in San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, Farhan was just absolutely blasted, saying, "Okay, so this is the kind of guy we're going to be getting." This is like a computer spits out a name, and you get this guy, and he's, nobody's ever heard of him. He's not going to be any good, and fans made fun of him. Connor Joe became sort of the poster child for what would be a failed Farhan Zaidi era, and they ended up getting rid of him after a couple of bad weeks, because they had the opportunity to get Kevin Pillar. And then Connor Joe ends up becoming a very, very valuable player. Look at what Mike Tauchman is doing for the Chicago Cubs. Not just going over the wall to catch balls, but hitting-wise. He's been one of the Cubs' best hitters this summer. So the philosophy they have and the tools they're using to find players is very good. And, ultimately, you give Farhan Zaidi the right amount of money and a farm system to deal with, and I think he can be as successful as any other general manager in the league or baseball ops president.
Should be very interesting to see how the season ends. 7 against the Dodgers in the last 10 games. This next 16, 18-game stretch, 2 against the A's, and as you mentioned, the Angels down to Disneyland, Rangers, the Rays coming to town. Then you got the Braves 6 times in 10 days, sandwiched with a series in between that with the Philadelphia Phillies in Philly. We're going to find out, but it's been a fun season. It definitely, they've exceeded everybody's, I think, expectations around these parts with the way the all-season went. So Giants playing some good ball. Hank, we got to do it again soon, man. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
All right, you bet. Thanks for reaching out.
Anytime. Thanks, Hank Schulman, legendary beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, covers them now and then for MLB.com.